Hey, this is Jeff Komar with Avid Pro Audio. In this module, we'd like to focus on some basic troubleshooting strategies to try and resolve system-based, session-based, and even plugin-based issues with Pro Tools. So we're going to break this down into 3 steps: trashing preferences, verifying qualification and compatibility, and then more advanced troubleshooting looking at session-based issues as well as managing plugins. First place to start is always the Pro Tools preferences. There's a great little helper app that we're going to mention once again, and it is the Pro Tools Pref and Database Helper. And essentially, it's a little app that automates the process of trashing the relevant prefs and databases. So I'm going to go and actually launch that so you can see that. And essentially, all of your key prefs are here: Digi Setup, DAE Prefs folder, Pro Tools Preferences, the com.digidesign.protools.plist, as well as your databases. You can simply choose the preferences you'd like to trash, press the giant trash can to throw them away, and then make sure you empty the trash from the dock. Make sure you do this with Pro Tools Quit, and then relaunch Pro Tools. So the next recommendation is to know how to check your Pro Tools and operating system version, and to ensure that you're running a compatible version of Pro Tools relative to the operating system version you're running. Okay, so to check the OS, very simple, just go up to the Apple menu and say About this Mac. And you can see I'm currently running OS X 10.7.4. Okay, and now let's go and check Pro Tools. If I go down to the Pro Tools link in my dock here, I can simply go to Options, go to Show in Finder, and then do a Command I. And you can see I'm running Pro Tools 10.2. Okay. Now, if we go to the website, we can take a look at the relevant compatibility docs, and I can see that Pro Tools 10.2 is happy with Mac OS X 10.6.7 through 10.7.4. So I am good, and that's a really important thing to ensure that you have a compatible version of the OS for your particular version of Pro Tools. Now that we've trashed the preferences and we've verified compatibility, we can go and relaunch Pro Tools. So the next recommendation is to go open the disk utility. Click on the Macintosh hard drive, go to First Aid, and click on Repair Disk Permissions. And you can only do this on an operating system drive. It won't work on for example, a media drive. But it's going to go through and ensure that the permissions are set correctly for all of the users with regard to all the files on the disk. Now, once you're finished, quit disk utility and reboot your computer. The permission repair won't take effect until you reboot your machine. Now, the next thing we're going to do is launch Pro Tools, and we're going to actually hold down the N key, N as in new, while we're launching Pro Tools. This is going to force Pro Tools to bring up a playback engine dialog before it launches the application. Sometimes you can get stuck in a loop where it tries to go to aggregate or it tries to go to some certain engine, and it can never quite get there. And by forcing it to bring up the engine and allow you to make a choice manually, you can resolve some issues. So simply go down to your Pro Tools, click on the app, hold down the N key, and while Pro Tools launches, it's going to go through all the Avid and third-party plugins. And then once it finishes loading the application, the first thing you're going to see is the playback engine. And so now I can verify, hey, yes, I want to be currently set to Avid MBox. And oftentimes Pro Tools will default to aggregate. Aggregate's not recommended. If you want to run with built-in hardware, for example, on your iMac or your MacBook Pro, use built-in output. It's far more reliable than aggregate. Your best bet is always to use an Avid engine, like Avid MBox, HD Native, HDX, etc. Okay, so I can hit OK, and we're ready to go. And it launches with that particular engine. The next thing we want to take a look at is some basic troubleshooting ideas with regard to opening a session. Maybe you're getting errors when the session's opening, and oftentimes this has to do with plugins. So one quick method to resolve that, at least to figure out what plugin is causing the problem, is to open a session with all plugins deactivated. And I can do that really simply. I've actually got the Quick Start dialog open right here. And I'm simply going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to click on the last session I was working in and hit OK. So holding down Shift while opening the session is a great technique to allow me to get the session open And then I can actually go through and manually activate plugins. I can do that while holding down the Command Control modifiers while clicking on a plugin. And you can see now I can reactivate any of these individual plugins one by one. If you want to activate all plugins, for example, on a particular row, you can hold down Command, Control, Option, and do the entire row. Now, if after you've tried all those suggestions, you're still having problems with Pro Tools, either getting it to launch or having it unexpectedly quit, we can now try some more advanced troubleshooting steps. We'll continue on with advanced troubleshooting in part 2.